Roman, you can do better than that. Good morning. I am Jack Joe Wilkes, and you are at Lawton Heights United Methodist Church on the grass. Whenever we first heard that the kids would be coming to Fort Sill, I had said to a friend of mine that I was willing to do whatever I could and would have the church to host people as much as we could. 2 days, about a week later, a storm came through and blew our roof off and tore down about 12 different trees. So in the midst of life and mess and chaos, there are still things that we have to do, right? Right. So I am so glad that you guys are here, because it was through word of mouth. So I told that friend that y'all got here. So I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that you're able to do this and to show a side of support to these kids, that they shouldn't be separated, and they should be allowed.
Can you talk to the mic? We can't hear you.
Sorry. Usually I have wireless. Anyway, so I'm glad that you're here. Thank you for being here. Amy.
Thank you again, Reverend Jack, for your hospitality here at the Lawton Heights United Methodist Church. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. My name is Amy Quo Hammerman. I am on the board of NCJW, National Council of Jewish Women St. Louis, and Congregation Share Emeth. Nation's immigration policy is an expression of its humanity. In our country's case, it is also an expression of one of the core principles upon which our country is built. If you are here, you either are or are descended from indigenous peoples of the Americas, people brought here because of slavery, or immigrants.
Yeah.
We pride ourselves on being a beacon of hope, freedom, and opportunity in the world. But despite these core beliefs, the way we are currently treating immigrants entering our country through our southern border lacks common decency. Separating children from their parents and failing to provide decent shelter, food, and medical care is inhumane.
Yes.
We refuse to let current leadership continue to further erode the basic decency and humanity that we believe are at the heart of our country.
Right.
That is why we are gathered here today.
Yeah.
Department of Health and Human Services recently announced that they will indefinitely delay the use of Fort Sill as a detention center for immigrant children. However, they have not canceled these plans, so it is entirely possible that due to an influx of more children, they may return to that option. This decision by the administration is a victory. Is one victory that does make a difference in this ongoing fight. People have been making their voice heard on this critical issue of immigration. The administration is being forced to listen. Organizing, protesting, bearing witness, and standing up for what's right does make a difference, and we must keep working.
Yes, yes.
I would like to now recognize the coalition partners of the Heartland for Human Justice. And this is an amazing and very diverse array of organizations. They are the Anti-Defamation League Heartland, Central Reform Congregation, Congregation Share Emeth, the Episcopal Church of the Holy Communion, the Jewish Coalition for New Americans, the Jewish Community Relations Council of St. Louis, Joint Venture of Metropolitan St. Louis, J Street St. Louis, Kol Rina, My Diversity Circle, the National Council of Jewish Women St. Louis, Parkway United Church of Christ, School Sisters of Notre Dame Central Pacific Province, Second Chance Freedom Foundation, Shir Hadash Reconstructionist Community, the Social Justice Commission of the Missouri Progressive Baptist Convention, St. Louis Child Abuse and Neglect Network, the St. Louis Japanese American Citizens League, St. Louis Jobs with Justice Workers' Rights Board, the St. Louis Rabbinical and Cantorial Association, Teruah, the Rabbinic Call for Human Rights, United Hebrew Congregation, We Stories, and Women's Voices Raised for Social Justice. I would also like to recognize the clergy in attendance here. We have Reverend Lori Anzalotti, Reverend Janice Barnes, Rabbi Daniel Bogard, Rabbi Shulamit Schenker, Reverend Amy Chambers Portwright, Cantor Joshua Finkel, Sister Jean Greenwald, Sister Virginia Brumich, Rabbi Elizabeth Hirsch, Reverend Heather McCain, Pastor Paul Neiman, Maharat Rory Picardis, Rabbi Scott Shafrin, Rabbi Susan Talby, and Rabbi Jack, who you met earlier. And I would also like to give thanks to the elected officials in attendance here today. Thank you to Missouri State Representative Sarah Unsicker, Missouri State Representative Ian Mackey, Council Member Heather Silverman, City of Creve Coeur, Council Member Maxine Weil, City of Olivet, and retired Judge St. Louis County Susan Block. Oh, and there are two more here. Representative Carrie Engel.
It's Rosecrans.
Jacob Rosecrans from Norman, Oklahoma.
And Jacob Rosencrantz from Oklahoma. Thank you for being here. And now I'd like to turn the program over to Rabbi Susan Talby.
And musicians. And musicians.
You mean us? I told you so.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Kathleen Sitzer. I am a member of Central Reformed Congregation. Can everyone hear me? Do I need this to be closer? Okay. Good. In 1869, exactly 150 years ago, the U.S. Army established Fort Sill in what was then Indian Territory as an outpost to fight the Indian Wars. Today, Fort Sill is perceived primarily as the home of the Army's Field Artillery School training facility, but it has an uglier history from its very beginnings. I know this place. I've been here before. 49 years ago, I was a young, 9-month pregnant Army wife, while my husband was here at Fort Sill in training. Our oldest child, Joshua, was born right here on the fort at Reynolds Army Hospital. That was in 1970, 101 years after the base was established. My husband and I were separated, him living on the base, with me living in an apartment in Lawton. Our only contact during that training period of 6 months was a 30-minute daily meeting on a parking lot where no physical contact was permitted. I sat inside the car. He stood outside the car at parade rest. If you don't know what that is, that was our contact for 6 months. Now, we surely did not suffer the same hardships as the Native Americans or Japanese Americans who were incarcerated here. Still, it was our own personal sacrifice, like so many others who passed through Fort Sill as they sacrificed to serve, some, of course, with their lives. And the sacrifices continue today. 150 years after Fort Sill was built. You'll soon hear in the next couple of speakers about the sacrifices of Native Americans, of the Japanese Americans, and of immigrant child asylum seekers. It's time for us to say we will no longer keep history from repeating itself, or we will keep history from repeating itself. And we say no more and never again. Blood can no longer be spilled on this land. So, I will pass this chain of origami cranes. The cranes in Japan are a symbol of peace. This chain was made 29 years ago by our Japanese daughter at the time, living with us. We have had it hanging from a light fixture in our house for 29 years. Sherry.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Sherry Ekohok Talik from the Pawnee and Oto Nations of Oklahoma. I am part of the Native Women's Care Circle of St. Louis, and I am honored to have traveled down here with the St. Louis community and all of the organizations that care about these children that are suffering. I'd like to have you join me in a prayer to start this day off. Tarara Atias, that means Heavenly Father in Pawnee. I like to use the word Creator, the Creator who created all things. Creator, thank you for this day of life that we live today. Thank you for the love and the wisdom and the spirit that sustains our every breath. Thank you for being with us as we safely travel down here to hear our message being said. No more separating of families. Our Native nations have suffered this experience for many years. It has promoted what has been called historical trauma. We are creating trauma in these families that don't deserve this. They came here for a better life, and it is our love that the Creator has put in us that we should express this and let them experience this. I ask blessings as we do our action today, guidance and strength, so that we continue to have our voice and our message heard. Stop separating families. I give thanks for everybody being here today, for the people of Lawton who have welcomed us so that we can do this action. I ask for prayers for the people who are promoting this cruelty, so that their hearts might be filled with light and love, so that we stop this horrific action against immigrants and asylum seekers and people who are mistaken, who are trying to be there to help people. I ask for blessings as we continue this, correcting what needs to be stopped. I ask for blessings for the continuation of people who come and share their blessings as these families are in pain. I give thanks for all of you coming together and sharing this voice with me. Thank you, Father. Thank you, Creator.
Amen.
Let there be love and peace on earth, on Mother Earth, not hate.
Amen.
Good morning. I'm Ruth Arisman. I'm representing Women's Voices Raised for Social Justice. There is blood on this soil, not only from Native Americans, but from Japanese Americans who were imprisoned and died here. From the time of their arrival in the United States, Japanese immigrants were denied the right to citizenship. They were not given the right to naturalization or even to file an intent to declare citizenship. Those rights were reserved only for white people and for people of African descent. In 1913, California passed the Alien Land Act that prohibited Japanese Americans from owning land. Then, as now, there is not a certain or clear path to citizenship. With the bombing of Pearl Harbor, the world of those with Japanese ancestry fell apart. Irrational fears separated families. Families lost their livelihood, their home, their possessions. They were first herded into ghettos as they awaited deportation into camps. Camps that were run by the War Location Department, the Department of Justice, and the Army. By the end of 1942, 110,000 men, women, and children of Japanese descent, some of whom were born in America, were illegally and unconstitutionally held and were never even charged with a crime. Fort Sill was one of those Army camps. They had a well-deserved reputation for inhumane and harsh treatment. By May 1942, almost 700 Japanese American men were imprisoned here, and among them were 90 Buddhist priests. Fort Sill is infamous for the shooting of Ichiro Shimoda, a 45-year-old gardener. Shimoda was picked up the evening of December 7th in a massive raid on the West Coast. He was separated from his family for months and was severely depressed. He twice attempted suicide while he was at Fort Sill and eventually was shot and killed as he was climbing a fence to escape, shouting, "I want to go home." There is blood on this soil and the tears of Native Americans and Japanese Americans who were imprisoned here.
There is blood in this soil. I can feel it standing here, outside the fort where Native Americans were forced to live, and then even had this land taken from them long ago. Echo Hawk is from Oklahoma. Her people were forced from Nebraska to come here, where their seeds did not grow. God was drawn into the story of the Exodus by the groaning of the people and the cries of the children. And we too, every one of us who got on those buses, and every one of us who have joined us here, and every one of us who has shown up here at Fort Sill and across the country protesting the separation of families, we too have been drawn to this place and into this story by the crying children and the groans of their families. Why did they leave? Why did they leave then and now? Poverty, danger, the powerlessness to protect their children and grandchildren readied them to leave to seek sanctuary in a land that promised to be better, a land that owed them a better life. They were brave enough to leave everything they knew behind. The Exodus began out of desperation, but the people rose up in determination and found the strength needed to look forward, and they said, "Si se puede," yes we can. And the seas parted then, as they must part now. Yes, we can. They promised never to do to others what was done to them. Si se puede, yes, we can. And they brought with them hope in spite of the armies and politics of hate surrounding them. The truth is, then and now, there is no promised land. only hope that their courage and commitment would save their children and grandchildren for the future and make a free land.